Happy New Year, bitches. It's 2019, and it's also Sunday.
Fuck off, asshole! Leave me alone! Don't you know it's fucking Sunday?
Happy New Year, you lovely monkeys. It's good to be back. I just want to take a moment and say, I've been away for a minute, and it's kind of started the show with the intention of not really taking any time off, and I approached the holidays, and I wound up taking some time off. So, it is what it is, and it's good to be back. And I noticed that, while I was away, you guys kept watching and kept commenting and kept engaging. So I just want to take a moment and say thanks very much. It's very humbling, and to know that you guys care and are watching and care what I'm doing and want to see things. It's just very cool. So thanks very much. I just wanted to take a second and say that. Today, what we're gonna do is in the spirit of the new year and some things that I wanted to try and do at some point and wasn't really sure when I would do it. And since it's the new year and I'm starting some new episodes, this is the perfect time to do it. So, what I'm going to do is start some introductory episodes for the audience. And for myself, it's more getting back to it. Introductory episodes on the REAKTOR Factory Library. The factory library is what started it all. Before there was reactor blocks, there was the factory library, and that's basically the ability to completely open up an instrument and just dive into the complete sonic landscape of the instrument, uninhibited, and with the ability to just completely just experiment and go off the walls and do whatever you want. So this is before reactor blocks, before the ability to kind of create pseudo modular synthesis and synthesizers on the computer screen. But this is just a collection of instruments. And I say these are instruments, even though I'm going to pull these up and these are going to be ensembles. But as a matter of introduction, I'll explain the difference between the two. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up the Carbon 2. It's a staple in the factory library. And as you can see, it looks pretty basic, but it's not. There's a hell of a lot to it. But what I'm going to talk about first is the difference between instruments and ensembles. So an instrument is this. It's a singular device with a singular set of controls and a singular purpose. Now, this is, as you can see, it's pretty complex. There's a lot of controls, there's a lot of different things that you can do, but it's a singular device, right? So, thinking back to blocks in the blocks format, it's like one block is an instrument, one block is a singular device with a singular set of controls and singular purpose, right? And you connect it to other blocks. So that's how that works. But one block is an instrument, just like this is an instrument. And if we go into the way the instrument actually looks underneath the panel, this is the way it looks. It's a singular device, it's connected directly to the output. This particular device, as you dig in, this is the instrument, and you're looking at this the way it's connected to the outputs, um and it's a modular format. You start to understand, okay, these are cables. Just like with the blocks format, I could insert things in between here. I could I could break the rules a little bit, right? I could throw a delay in here if this doesn't have a delay that I like, or I could put a chorus in here, a reverb or something. You know what I mean? But the possibilities of kind of chaining instruments together and connecting instruments through one another to achieve some sort of result that you're looking for, that also becomes possible in this realm, right? So in this format of working with just standard Reaktor instruments, they can work the same as Reaktor blocks in a way because they are an instrument. It's a singular device, and you can chain instruments together. And within that chain, in other words, when I look at things at this level, if I start chaining instruments together and I save this, like maybe I create some sort of monster instrument that's like got 20 things chained together, and I really like this. This is a really creative, weird environment. I really like it. I want to preserve it. How do I do that? Well, that's what's called an ensemble. So what I could then do with this is I could go file, save ensemble as, and that saves the collection of all the instruments, everything you have chained together. That'll save all of that into a single ensemble that you can then recall. You can, of course, choose a location of where you're going to save it, recall it, and then that's your ensemble. You can do with that what you like. And so some examples, I have saved some ensembles over time, like Carbon 2 plus things, Carbon 2 plus a sequencer, which I'd like to get into later episodes, like how to connect sequencers and how to do other cool things that you obviously, would like to kind of obviously want to get to eventually within looking at standard instruments. But I like to save these things over time because you can manipulate these things. Like again, they provide you with the out of the box tools, but using what we already know about Reaktor, and like, okay, well, here's a bank of presets I can obviously sift through and see what's cool, but there's a number of empty ones here, and I can create new banks as well. So I can create sounds within this instrument and pack it full of different sounds and save them as presets and do those kinds of things and then save that guy as my own, as completely my own ensemble. So that way it gives me the ability to basically recall presets that I've saved or combinations of instruments that I've saved that I find, inspirational, or that I would like to use, or that I need for certain purposes if I need to recreate things. So, let's dig in. And one thing that I encourage you to do, and this is kind of hard to do in this format sometimes, and I completely understand. But one thing that I would encourage you to do is just open an instrument and try to eliminate distractions and try to just like understand what it is we're even dealing with here, like just inside the instrument. You know what I mean? And I like to personally, I'll liken it to like going to buy an instrument like this off a shelf, like a hardware instrument that's connected to a keyboard or some sort of modular instrument that does something similar to this. Like that would be thousands of dollars of equipment. It would be like a very, it would be something that you would have to kind of save up for, you'd have to kind of plan for, or if you had money to kind of sling around to do that sort of thing, like it would be a very conscious decision to spend a few $1,000s on an instrument like this in the hardware world. So I try to, and when you do that, I would bring something like that home and I would just like unpack it completely. I would go through all the presets that are on there. I would learn how to save my own things, learn how to manipulate things. I would, in other words, learn what the rules are so I could start bending them and breaking them and learning where I connect with this instrument as a person. You know what I mean? So try to do that with this. You know what I mean? Like in a way, like you just eliminate distractions, get in here and just start playing around, start hearing some things and start seeing, okay, this is the landscape of the rules that are in here right now. And let's just start digging through some of the sounds. So starting with the presets, like there's just a ton of stuff. That's dark and frickin' cool. So there's, I mean, just out of the box, there's a ton of really neat sounds. And, you know, this isn't completely, because we've been in the blocks world for the past however many weeks, you know, we understand when we see sections like oscillators, filters, you know, master, okay, these are effects. All right, that makes sense. Okay, now it looks like these are just like little indicators. I can switch them on and off. Okay, so some of these things you can just kind of break it down, and it makes sense. You know what I mean? So I don't know specifically how this instrument works, but just looking at the labels, I can intuit, okay, here's the oscillator section. Here's oscillators 1, 2, and 3. These are probably going to be my primaries, right? Here's a ring sort of oscillator. Here's a noise sort of oscillator. And then it looks like there's different things where you can choose pitch, and where you can choose level, and different types of waveforms, and different things of that nature. So obviously within an individual patch, or if you started wanting to build your own patches, this is where you could start to manipulate some of those things. And honestly, the best thing to do is to just start putting your hands on, shut up, basically, stop doing what I'm doing. Put your hands on keys, start turning some knobs and seeing what happens, you know. So the section in the middle is obviously the filter section, and then when it says mode here, you know, this is what I'm looking for, some type of type, because what is this, BPX? I don't know for sure, okay, right? But I imagine that stands for bandpass filter. Now, you could also, with information turned on, obviously just like within, blocks, you could start to hover over things, and if there's adequate description, then you can start to understand, what the different things are. But if you're familiar with filter types and EQ types, BP normally stands for band pass. I don't know what BR stands for. Low pass, LP. High pass, HP, peak filter. You see some of these things over and over, so you know the way broadly. That's just cool as fuck. So we might move on, or I might be here all day, which I'm okay with that. But and this is what this is what I encourage you to do. Learn what the instrument can do. Learn what it's capable of. Take it to what you feel are its limits, and you never know what that sound is going to be, because that's where it all starts. You know, the creative spark starts with a thing. It starts with something that excites you. It's like, oh, that's cool, you know. Just like I sat there with that thing for a couple of minutes, you know, it's just like you hear that thing and it sparks some curiosity that's like, okay, now what can I do with this and this, and oh, now what, that sounds cool. And that you arrive in some creative intrinsic space. And you never would have gotten there if you didn't hit the keys and just start toying around. You know what I mean? So that's what I encourage you to do. Like, unpack this like it's a piece of hardware that you spent thousands of dollars on and make it worth it. And there's, you know, and it's hard to remember to do that in something like Reaktor, because there's hundreds of instruments. There's hundreds of different things you can do right out of the box. There's hundreds, you know, there's tons of different stuff other than Carbon 2 that I can sit here and play with all day. There's tons of blocks and things I can, of course, build. So it's just like there's all sorts of different things, but spend the time to just slow it down, get into one thing, you know, just learn what this one thing can do all across the board. Trust me, you know, it's going to be really, really beneficial. That's cool as fuck too. So let's kind of learn a little bit. Let's see what information's packed into here. So pitch, loads oscillator frequency modulation panel. Makes sense. Okay, so this is where we're going to modulate the frequency of each of these. Selects the slots of volume modulation source. Volume modulation source. Very nice. So I can modulate the volume of these with something. All right, so we can learn more about what those somethings are. Sets the amount and polarity of modulation applied to the slot's volume level. Clicking on the control title bar restores the value to its default. Okay, let's unpack what the fuck that means for just a second. Set the amount and polarity of modulation applied to the slot's volume level. Okay, that makes sense. So you can control the amount of modulation that's coming in. Even if the modulation is coming in at a particular intensity, you can still control the amount of intensity that's applied to this. Looks like with this control here. Clicking the controls title bar restores the amount. Yeah, makes sense. Okay, so you can restore it to its default. All right. Sets the sources to modulate the oscillator's pitch. The slot can mix up to 2 sources. Yeah, cool. So pitch, volume, volume. That's, you know, that's what this does. Loads oscillator waveform modulation panel. Okay. Waveform. Loads oscillator sync panel. All right. So source, effects. Here we go. So these are some of the different panels. You can just open up different tabs within the instrument. And these are the different panels. Okay, makes sense. Some familiarizing with some of the presets, some familiarizing with some of the rules. All right. This is pretty fucking sweet. I mean, so it's capable of gnarly sounds. It's capable of just weird. Okay, this is like sine stuff going on here, you know? Just like weirdness. So guitar sound. Fuck yeah. You see what I mean, though? You just like, you start unpacking things, and who knows? Who knows what the fuck can happen? Just try it, you know? Jesus. That's weird. You gotta look behind you on that one, like, look like I can see behind me. I can finally monitor myself. But, you know, if you couldn't, like, oh, Jesus. What's that? We're in the fucking upside down right now, yo. And see, like, this already has effects going on, and that's what makes a lot of these presets and a lot of these things sound like immediately cool right out of the gate. Is there's a lot of stuff just packed in that's making it sound badass. But say you want to, you know, hear some other type of filter on it, some other type of effect on it, you know, that's when you start getting into edit mode and start adding things. And so we'll probably spend some time in future episodes learning how to connect instruments together. And that's going to be really beneficial for us moving forward and for just being creative in general moving forward. So it's been a pleasure getting back to it. I'm excited to get back to it. And until next time.